I'm here this early in London this morning to go and do a talk at the Business Design Centre, which is a little way down that way, but I'm early, and so the most important thing right now is coffee. It's so early, the coffee shop's not even open, but this kind lady has taken pity on me and is making me a coffee anyway. Plenty of doors that say entrance, but none of them actually open. Let's try around the back. Aha. Excellent. Let's give that a go. Thank you very much. So, got my badge. Let's go and meet the team. Got camera envy. Mind you, carrying that on a skateboard wouldn't be very easy. See which one's mine. So, quick stop off at the Inboard HQ in London to pick up a spare battery. Also got given a bit of merch, t-shirts and hoodies, which is it's great. So you'll see me wearing those in my videos. Now it's off home. So today's big question after my talk was how do you manage two drivers in a Formula 1 team who fight against each other, like the Lewis Hamilton Fernando Alonso situation we had a few years ago at McLaren. It's actually one of the most difficult things to cope with and to manage in terms of Formula 1. Sometimes your biggest competitor, or the one guy stopping you from winning the world title, is the guy sat a few metres away in the same car as you on the other side of the garage, wearing the same uniform. It's very different when your main rival is the guy from another team, because it's easy. You close down the garage doors, you shut up shop, and you fight against the opposition, which are another team. When the opposition's across the garage, it proves to be this really difficult dynamic, because what happened with us in 2007 was that the two halves of the team split down the middle. The sets of mechanics and engineers ended up grouping around their driver and fighting for their driver, as you naturally would, and it meant that they were fighting against the group of mechanics and engineers on the other side of the garage. So you start to, the flow of information starts to dry up from one side to the other, because no one wants to give away an advantage to what they deem to be the opposition. And as a team, you have to try and keep that information flow going. So that becomes your most important factor. We struggled in 2007. It's no secret that the fact that we were squabbling amongst ourselves is probably the reason that in fact definitely the reason we didn't win the world title in 2007. I think another example of it was a bit further down the line with Lewis and Nico Rosberg at Mercedes, and of course they still had problems, but I think they dealt with it in a slightly better way. And the key, I think, for them was making it very, very obvious and very open that there was a level playing field. No one driver had an advantage over the other. No one team, one half of the team, one side of the garage had an advantage over the other. All had exactly the same equipment and the same opportunity, the same strategy calls. And I think that is probably about as good as you can do. Make sure that everyone knows the whole team is behind both sides, and they both have the opportunity to win and do well. Let's listen to Martin Lagarde.
And of course you can also tweet me at Martin Lagarde.
Hilarious. Martin Lagarde has just given himself a shout out on his own personal Twitter account on the tannoy system. Love that. Nice one. Anyway, the answer to the question basically is that it's not an easy thing to manage the two squabbling drivers in the same Formula 1 team. I don't think there's an easy answer to it. There's no magic bullet for it. And I think, every time this situation happens, which is relatively rare, whoever the team is, starts to learn a bit more about it. It's not something there are many test cases for, because as I say, it doesn't happen that often. Normally you end up with one of your two drivers being the lead driver, whether that's through contractual obligations like we have at Ferrari, or whether it's just naturally that one driver emerges as the stronger contender over the year, and therefore becomes the de facto number one. The question that then came up was that given that the last two times this situation has happened, Lewis Hamilton's been involved. Is Lewis the reason that these teams keep fighting amongst each other? And the answer to that, I think, well, it's kind of yes and no. Not because Lewis is this troublemaker or this instigator of arguments and infighting. I don't think that's the reason at all. Although he certainly played his part in the 2007 fighting at McLaren, and I've written extensively about that in my book. So if you haven't read it, go check it out. But actually because he's probably the best driver, certainly one of the very best drivers, and when you get the best driver in the best team, the chances are you're likely to get the other driver also being very, very good. McLaren always chose the two best drivers they could get. Mercedes doing exactly the same. Lewis was up against, don't forget, Fernando Alonso in 07, the current world champion as he was. So two drivers that were clearly, as it turned out, at a very similar level. When Lewis was up against Nico Rosberg, Nico went to extraordinary lengths to enhance his own game, to up his own level, to reach that of Lewis Hamilton. And when he did, they were both, again, very, very close. And the fact that Nico won the championship in 2016 was testament to just how much hard work and sacrifice he had to put in to become the very best. So you're talking about two drivers in a team during those times, who are the best at what they do in the very best car at that particular time. Therefore, that's why the situation's occurred. So that was close. I was just busy mucking about editing this video on the train. Very, very nearly missed my station. Just thinking about squabbling teammates reminds me of my own children. Not the older two, not Lex and Leo. They're old enough that they don't normally squabble anymore. But the younger two, the twins, 7-year-old twins, they squabble and fight and scrap all the time. I guess like most siblings. But when you think about it, it's always because, or nearly always because, they always want the same thing. They want to play with the same toy, or they want to sit in the front of the car, or they want to, have the same one sweet or chocolate bar, or, something that's left in the fridge. They both want it. Which, when you think about that, is no different to two Formula 1 teammates. They're squabbling because they want the same thing, which is the world title. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is trying to run a Formula 1 team with two arguing Formula One drivers, who can at times be divas, is not much different to being a parent. The way I deal with my twins is that I teach them that mummy and daddy love them both equally, that, you know, they both get the same fair treatment, the same opportunities. There's no favourites between the two, and if they're good, they'll both be well looked after and treated well and loved. Pretty much exactly how you need to operate a Formula One team and look after two squabbling drivers then. Right, I'm off home to run my own little mini Formula One team. There's a very clear structure in my Formula One team. I'm the team principal, my wife is the deputy team principal. My problem is that she doesn't see it that way.